This is the finale of the AFC East, so let's get to it. The New England Patriots, the defending AFC East division champions. They had a lot of picks this draft, a lot of hype around what Belichick was going to do post Brady, what adjustments he was going to make, who he was going to bring in, what steals he was going to get to turn the team around. No first round pick, only a second round pick, and with it, Belichick started with safety from Lenore Ryan, Kyle Duggar. I gave it a B. I'm thinking a little bit lower now because I was watching some film after I had written this analysis on him, and I will touch up on what I saw in the film once I get there. But overall, there's no doubt, in my opinion, that Duggar is a good athlete. He's got good size, good speed, and explosiveness. He needs to sharpen all of his abilities. He's been playing at a D2, D3. I think it's D3. So you get away with a lot of stuff, and you also get a lot of stuff that you wouldn't get if you were playing at a higher level. He's not really playing against good quarterbacks, good wide receivers. So it is a gamble. But he needs to sharpen his coverage abilities, no doubt. Definitely needs to be more disciplined when anticipating throws. He should have had more interceptions than he did, probably. And I think he'll probably make an immediate impact for Belichick. I think Belichick will find a way to get him into the defense. He'll coach him up. Belichick is very good in terms of defensive mind and getting his players to perform very well on defense. So I think he'll get him there. Now, his punt returning, he got 6 punt return touchdowns at Lenore Ryan. However, watching highlights and watching the Senior Bowl, he doesn't have stamina. So when he does get going, he goes, and then before he even gets into the end zone, he's out of gas. So that's not really going to work in the NFL. His speed, he can run, but he can't keep it up, and it starts to show. So he could probably be good. He'll probably have a good average for punt returns, but I don't think he's going to be as explosive as he was at Lenore Ryan. As he runs out of gas when he's chasing. When he's chasing in pursuit, or when he's the ball carrier and he's running with the ball. So overall, though, I gave it a B. Probably wasn't the biggest need or the best pick that Belichick had done, but he went with him, and we'll see how it pans out. But so I gave it a B, though. With the second round, 60th overall pick, Belichick went defense again with edge from Michigan, Josh Uche. Uche was very good his junior year. His senior year, it was a silent but good year. I gave this pick a B. He was productive at Michigan, like I said. And going to New England now, his buddy Chase Winovich is already there. That'll be a good reuniting. And I think what we saw to Winovich last year in New England, you'll probably get the same thing from Uche. He'll be decent. He'll be able to play the role, and it won't be a mismatch or a negative to have him out on the field. So overall, I think he'll do fine. Definitely potential to develop under Belichick's defense and be a pretty good pass rusher. He's a good athlete. He shows explosiveness, and I think he hasn't played a ton of games. He hasn't started a ton of games. Last year was his only year starting at Michigan, so he lacks experience. That'll help him fine-tune some of his skills. And yeah, I think he'll be a rotational, handy off the bench. Definitely a guy you could count on sending him in there as a sub or off the bench. And eventually, 3+ years down the road, he could probably develop into a good starter. So not a bad pick. But again, I question whether or not it was a need, and why Belichick wasn't helping his offense, but we will get there. Round 3, 87th overall, Belichick went defense again, picking Anthony Jennings, edge rusher out of Alabama. I gave it a C+. He's going defense again. He just drafted an edge. And while Jennings does have good experience and a good football IQ, his pass rush needs a little bit of improvement to be more effective because he's more of an outside linebacker build. So he was also a captain at Alabama, so that's a bonus. But the main reason the grade isn't higher is because of the drafting of more defensive positions. I believe that the Patriots had big needs on offense. They had one of the worst wide receiving cores, and they had one of the worst groups of tight ends last year in the National Football League. So I think helping out there would have been more of a priority, especially since they're going to have first-year starter Jared Stidham, in at quarterback. So it should be interesting to see what he does, but I wish Belichick could have gotten him some more help. So that's why that pick was a C+. It's not that Jennings isn't a good player, but he needs improvement, and it's too repetitive of a pick in my opinion. The next pick Belichick drafted was in round 3, 91st overall, Devin Asasi, I believe it is, tight end out of UCLA. I gave this pick a B- because his experience and production are very low. He barely played much, and when he did play, it doesn't really show on the stat sheet. His weight fluctuates, which is not good. That needs to be monitored. He's got playmaking ability, but it's very questionable because he doesn't stand out athletically. But the catches he had, some of them were decent plays. So it's a questionable pick, but the reason I gave it a B- is because it's such a heavy need. So it'll be interesting to see what Belichick saw in Devin, and I'm not sure how that's going to pan out positively, but that moves us to their third round pick, Dalton Nee, tight end out of Virginia Tech, an even worse tight end. I had to give this one a C+, because again, while it's a need, Nee is not in very good shape. He's not an athletic beast. He is unselfish. He blocks well. He's a red zone threat, but outside of that, he didn't catch many passes for many yards. He is a reliable big target. He's not going to make the big play. So the other problem with this pick was that he was a 5th round projection, and Belichick took him in the 3rd round, so I question the strategy of drafting him way above. I don't think Dalton would have been picked higher than the 4th round, and that would be towards the end of the 4th. So it was a questionable pick. There was still guys on the board with talent to go with Dalton, so I gave it a C+. And you can see now where the New England Patriots draft is starting to fall apart, and it doesn't get any better because Belichick then in round 5 with the 159th overall pick totally wastes the pick, picking Justin Wowzer, kicker from Marshall. I gave this pick an F-. It's absolutely a joke. It was a waste of a pick. Belichick overdrafted this guy who was projected to be undrafted, and he picked him in the 5th round. It's stupid. There's still guys on the board. He could have used this pick for Dalton Nee, the tight end out of Virginia Tech, and used the 3rd round pick to go get somebody better. It's poor draft management, and frankly, this kicker's not even good. He only had 78.6% of his field goal tries, and he's not a for sure touchback on the kickoffs guy. So I questioned this pick very, very heavily, and it was very stupid. So for that, I had to give it an F minus. It's poor draft management, and I'm really surprised Belichick drafted this poorly. That takes us to their 6th round pick, 182nd overall, Michael Onwenu, guard from Michigan, solid guard. Definitely room to develop. This was one of the Patriots' better picks. I gave it a B plus because, like I said, I believe the offensive line coach of 40 plus years, is still in New England. So if he's there, I think Onwenu is somebody that could definitely be developed. He's got your NFL size and strength. He's a solid lineman, little inconsistent, but again, that comes with experience, comes with fixing of techniques and footwork, which Belichick gets down to it, and he does well. So good pick, Michael Onwenu for the Patriots, B plus on that pick. With their next 6th round pick, 195th overall, they picked Justin Huron, tackle guard out of Wake Forest. I gave it a C. Huron seems to lack the strength needed to match up against the NFL talent. So that's why the pick grade was a C. The reason it wasn't a D was because he's more athletically gifted. So he could develop into like a backup lineman when one of them gets injured or tired. He comes in and he does a very, very okay job. But it's a developmental piece. It's a kind of a questionable pick. And yeah, very surprising. So the next pick in the 6th round, 204th overall, they picked Cash Maluia, linebacker from Wyoming. I gave this pick an F minus. It's just another bad pick. Maluia was not projected to be drafted. Like he was probably on nobody's draft board. It's a joke. He's not a stat sheet stuffer. Even at Wyoming, he's very inconsistent as a tackler. Has pretty poor awareness. Not sideline to sideline. He was arrested after a DUI. In 2018 or 2017, and really his only plus and his only shot, which is probably why Belichick drafted him, or he's got decent athletic abilities, but I don't think that's going to be enough to overcome his many flaws and weaknesses. So for that, I gave it an F minus. It's another waste of a pick, and again, it's somebody that if he did want him, he could have picked him up after the draft in the free agency. So again, bad pick. Very common theme in this draft for the Patriots. Round 7 and their last pick in the draft was 230th overall. They drafted Dustin Woodard, a center from Memphis. Almost gave this pick an F, but I gave it a D minus. He's drastically undersized at 285 pounds in today's NFL. Maybe it would have been good back in the day when you could be that small, but in today's game, he lacks the strength and the size to match up with NFL defensive linemen. And it's another guy that was on nobody's draft board and not projected to be drafted. And he could have, again, waited an hour to sign him in free agency and use the pick for some guy with some potential to be developed. So Woodard, another bad pick by the Patriots. I gave it a D minus. Overall grade, I gave the Patriots a lucky C minus because I'm disappointed with Belichick and how he wasted picks, poor draft management, and how he was doing picks. He was overdrafting players. He was way overdrafting some. He focused on very few of the team's needs, strictly going for offensive line, defensive line, edge only. Oh, and tight ends. So, the offensive line, defensive line, edge in the defensive line, and then tight end. It's very weak. He didn't really hit the needs, or at least not all of them. A lot of the guys he drafted, he could have gone in the free agency, and he could have used them for other. He could have used those picks for other players. I think it's questionable that he didn't even think about drafting from and how he drafted the kicker. So you can't say you had a quarterback on your mind, Belichick, and then draft a kicker who's lousy over Jake Fromm. So overall, just disappointment with the Patriots, but they did draft a few guys where the development is noticeable, and I think it can be done. Hence the C-, not a D-. So overall, though, I don't think the sky or the roof gets any higher for this draft. It's definitely not leaving the C+ range. So overall, pretty disappointing draft in my opinion for the Patriots. A lot of overdrafting, a lot of bad moves, and that does it for the AFC East. So thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Coming up shortly will be AFC South videos, and I will take and break down the AFC South and the drafting of the Titans, Jaguars, Colts, and Texans coming up next. Thank you.